Good evening, good afternoon, good morning from wherever you are. This is the time. Welcome to COMETSA Podcasting Network, hosting podcast live, continuing with our series, Coaching Models and Methods. I'm expecting to be joined by my fellow coaches, Coach Rapula, Coach Ulrike, and many more of you joining on our public platform. Let me remind you again that the COMETSA Radio Podcast is a member of COMETSA Global Online Channels, and it's bringing these programs according to our concept of the idea. We inform and entertain. We develop and educate. We empower and support. We associate and network. That is the idea. We are the mind, the journey, the destiny. Applying our mind to the journey that takes us to our destiny. Greetings to you, and I hope you're looking forward to this evening. I can see my colleague Ulrike is in the studio, not yet, but on the platform. I'm going to try and pull her over to the studio. Hopefully, she can join me and we can give her the opportunity to also greet you. We will be joined by Coach Rapula as well. We are all riding on 3G this evening. Most of us are experiencing load shedding. It was the same last night. It's the same now. We are adaptable as entrepreneurs, as coaches. The show must go on. Welcome, Rapula. I can see you are also here. Welcome on board. You can greet our listeners, but I can see you are not on the studio yet. Let me pull you over to the studio. Ulrike, welcome to you. If you are talking, you probably on mute because I can't hear you. I'm trying to pull Rapula over. Rapula, I've just sent you invite to come onto the studio. Are you here? Oh, yes, I can see you. Greetings to you, Rapula. And greetings to you, Coach Ulrike. I'm not sure whether you are talking, but I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Ulrike. I suggest that you log off and then log in again. Then I will be able to pick you up. And it looks like it's the same with Rapula. I'm not able to hear you as well. And then, of course, greetings to colleagues that have already joined on the public platform. Coach Dolores, greetings to you. Good to have you online. Feel free to chat with us. Is that Ulrike talking? You might be muted. Ulrike, if you are talking, I can't hear you. Rapula, I can't hear you as well. If you don't mind, log off and then come back. That we will be able to pick you up. We are discussing fuel coaching model. And this model entails the elements F for frame the conversation, U for understanding the current state, E for exploring the desired state, and L for laying out the successful plan or success plan. We will then end the session by engaging with Coach Ulrike around communication in workplace coaching, whereby we look into the meaning of active listening, effective listening in the workplace, questioning techniques for coaching, direct communication in coaching employees, and how to adapt to workplace coaching communication. So it's a full agenda. I hope we're going to enjoy it and we're going to learn a lot from it. Rapula, are you able to hear me? I can't hear you, Rapula. Let me see if Ulrike is still on the platform here. Ulrike, I can see you. I'm trying to invite you back into the studio. Hopefully, I'll be able to hear you. And welcome to Coach Tosi. I can see you are on the public platform. Today, you must be enjoying just hearing us talking, because your session was the last couple of weeks, and it was good indeed. If you want to drop in some messages on the chat, please feel free to do so. I'm battling to hear Rapula. I think he's trying to talk, but I can't.
Sam? Sam, can you hear me? Sam?
Do me a favor and just call Rapula that there's no way I can pick up his WhatsApp call because I'm live in the studio. Ulrike, welcome. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me? Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you loud and clear. Welcome.
Thank you very much. And good evening.
Technology has got a way of giving you a little bit of a treat.
Thanks a lot. Now I had also load shedding from 6 o'clock.
Yeah. Fortunately, the platform is not heavy on data, so it's as good as making a call. So I hope we will be able to stay long on the call. And I'm trying to connect Rapula. He seems to be struggling. Rapula, if you hear me, I suggest you log out and then log in again, and then I will be able to welcome you into studio.
Sam, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
My problem was that I hadn't given the app permission to use my microphone. So you have to go into the app and into settings and give permission for the use of the microphone. Maybe that is the problem.
Yeah, okay, perhaps. But Rapula used to be on this platform. I don't know what is the challenge for him now. He's trying to call me, but I can't call him. Tosi, if you have Rapula's number, I suggest you ask him to try and just give me alternative email to send the invite to, because I can't talk to him from the studio because I'm live now. But no need to panic. We will get him into the studio. That's where he belongs. That's where he has to be for conversation to take place. So pick up the call. I'll drop myself off the studio. I'm just texting Rapula to give me an email address to send the link to on board. So, yeah, at the same time as I started saying, I want to welcome the colleagues that have joined on the public platform. They can't wait to listen to you, Ulrike and Rapula. We have to get Rapula in first because the plan is to engage him on the fuel model before we move on to second part, which will be addressed by Ulrike. So Rapula has sent me an email address to send the link to, so I'm going to try and see if that one works. Let's go for it. And hopefully we can get him on board. This is a user-friendly platform. There shouldn't be any need for us to panic. We'll just have to play along with technology. Let me try to send Rapula a fresh invite. Let's see. Invite sent. Oh, it says already sent. So Rapula, this email you've given me, I've already used it, so I can't use it twice. So you should just try to click again, and then you will be able to join. Alternatively, go to the public platform, and I'll try to fetch you from there. I'm told that we are. I'm increasing the volume. Hopefully, that's better. Rapula, are you able to hear me? Ulrike, if you don't mind increasing your... Okay, I can see Rapula has joined now. Rapula, welcome.
Thank you, Sam. I've struggled a little bit. Is my voice now clear?
I can hear you. Just increase your volume a bit.
Let me just do that. I was panicking.
Why were you panicking? There's no need to panic. That's how it happens every time when we start the show. You first have to get all the equipments communicating with each other.
Now I'm here.
Increase your volume, Rapula. They're saying that they can't hear you. It's not loud enough. Alternatively, you have to put the phone close to your mouth.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, but you will have to speak loud because you're a bit soft.
Is it? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, I can hear you, but you are soft. So you need to speak a bit loud.
Okay, let me try to find out where do I go wrong.
No, you are very loud. You are laudable. You are loud, but your voice is soft. Not the equipment. It's you. You just have to stretch your vocal cords a bit.
All right. Is my voice still soft or is it hard enough?
Yeah, if you keep it there, that is perfect. I know your voice is not the equipment. Your voice is soft, so you just, unfortunately, for the benefit of the others, you're just gonna have to keep it pitch high.
All right, I'll pitch high as much as I could.
That's perfect. That's perfect. Am I right, Ulrike? He is perfect now, right?
Not for me, unfortunately. It sounds as if he is in a different room.
Is it? Yeah.
So
Well, is your volume up to the end, Rapula?
Let me go back to the volume again. I think it's up to the end. Let me go. Or let me change the phones.
But now you're okay. No, you just now. I'm sure it has to do with your distance from your equipment.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Am I still soft now?
Yes. From my side, you are soft. I don't know what the others think.
What type of a phone are you using? Do you have a smartphone to use?
Yes, I'm using a smartphone and I'm using Samsung. So that's why I was thinking of switching from Samsung to the iPhone.
Yeah, no, iPhone will be perfect. Okay, but let's not ambush the products brands. So to use whichever phone works. Colleagues on the public platform, please drop us a note in the chat box. If you are struggling to hear any one of us, we will appreciate that. Ulrike, you are loud and clear with me. Rapula, will it be quicker for you to switch over to your iPhone? Are you able to see your email on the iPhone as well?
Yes, I'm checking it now.
Okay. Yeah, you can log in with both, and then we'll kick you out. We'll kick another one out once you are better with the other one.
Let me do that.
Yeah, so Ulrike, how did you survive the day today? Did you have any disruptions because of power?
No, No, I had no disruptions. It was a very good day.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay,
Sam,
Rapula, I can hear you now. Much
better now? All right,
Much better.
Let me switch off the other one.
Yeah, no, you're perfect. You're perfect.
So what you're saying to me, the other phone is not good for the business. I'm just joking.
You know better.
Can you hear me loud and clear now, Ulrike?
Yes, Rapula, thanks very much. You are brilliant now.
Okay. My only fear on this phone is just that it chows power very quick. But let me see how far it will drive me, because I'm sitting on a dark night right now. Hopefully until 7 or 7:15, and thereafter it will be much more better.
Yeah, no, we shall survive. Don't worry.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's take it from there. Rapula and Ulrike, I'm giving you 2 minutes each just to greet the listeners and give us the intro remarks, and then we will take it from there. Over to you, Rapula.
Oh, it's me who's starting first. My name is Rapula Modibane. I'm based here in Bojanala district. I'm managing a company called Rapula Holding Group, which its main focus is more on mentoring and coaching, with its secondary business on interest on renewable energy, specifically on solar and biogas. That's where you're going to find it in many instances. But however, the main core business of it is coaching and mentoring, and specifically in consulting space around the ESD environment and the ESG environment. So that's who I am. That's where I'm based at this moment. That's where a person is trying to, what we call entrepreneurship, where I love that definition of it where it says entrepreneurship is a process of building enterprises with sustainable advantage within the framework of three related disciplines: entrepreneurship, leadership, and management. Perhaps today we're going to speak to one of those elements within our coaching environment. Thank you, Sam. And thank you to the listeners.
Thank you very much, Rapula. And for those who don't know what ESD and ESG mean, will you want to explain that?
All right. ESD is enterprise supply development within the various environment. It's a thorny issue, especially in rural space, in terms of connection within the industries, specifically in the mining industry and the community. And the ESG is an environment, social governance, is a thorny issue from United Nations around mining houses, specifically around climate change and environmental preservations. Just 2 weeks ago, we thought of Jagersfontein in Free State. It's one of those little issues of terms of environment. How do you preserve it to make sure that our future kids, they still have environment around them?
Mm. And Bojanala is the hub of mining, right?
Yes, Bojanala is a hub of mining in Northwest. It's got all the I normally call predominantly the platinum side. You do have the chrome side. You do have manganese. You do have they normally call it PGMs, but it's mostly around platinum-related minerals. There's various factors of them in terms of different minerals. What you need to understand about mining sector in South Africa as a whole, the past 2 years of COVID, the revenue from those industries saved this country. So we need to applaud them and appreciate them and work with them to make sure that we have a sustainable business and industry in our space. That's why the current load shedding is hitting the mining houses very hard, and every one of us is a bit worried in terms of the GDP of this country, because it's mainly depending on that industry, especially during this close environment.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Coach Rapula. Coach Ulrike, a little bit about yourself as well. I know we're going to engage with you a little bit later after Rapula will have taken us through the fuel model. But just a greetings to the listeners.
Good evening to everybody in the studio and outside to the ones that are listening. I'm Ulrike Pretorius. I'm a German South African living in the Western Cape. I have my own...
Please just increase the volume of your equipment, Ulrike.
I nearly said that also. Yeah, I'm experiencing that also.
Is this better?
Maybe
It's still soft, Eureka, but let's try our best. If I can't hear you properly, our listeners will have a problem. That gig
And
is open.
I have the highest volume I can have. And
maybe put your
Okay.
equipment closer to your mouth. Sorry about that.
I'm having my eyes in the screen.
What equipment are you using, Ulrike?
Samsung. And I don't have an iPhone. But
Okay.
Rapula, have you put yourself on
Rapula, you can mute yourself.
I can mute myself. Okay, let me go there. Sorry.
that might open up space? Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay. Is it loud enough?
Yeah, it's loud enough. I've asked the listeners to drop a message in the chat box if they can't hear you. I'll be watching and I'll let you know.
Right. Let me know if it doesn't work, then I must see what else I can do on my side. But I'm basically with my mouse on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Ulrike Pretorius. I'm a German South African in the Western Cape. I have my own coaching business. I'm also a director of a business called Learning Edge Partners. I call myself a leadership and business coach, and I have a particular interest in the future world of work, helping companies and individuals to become future competent, future fit, future ready. I'm working together with the Future Fit Academy. I'm also doing quite a bit of work in the career development space. And then I have one speciality. I am a narcissism sense maker. I work with people that are narcissistically abused, affected, or struggle with a narcissistic boss or manager or colleague. I do also some lecturing and some public speaking, and I'm really passionate about my clients. I love what I do. I think that's all. And today I will speak about active listening, effective listening, some coaching question tools, and direct and indirect communication at the workplace.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Ulrike. We're looking forward to that conversation. Active listening is one topic that I so much like when it comes to us coaches and coachees engaging with each other. Certainly feel free to interject when Rapula is taking us through the model. The whole idea really for asking our fellow coaches to spend some time unpacking this model is for us to expand our knowledge on a diverse models, because we believe very strongly that the more models one has insights on, the better whenever you are engaging with your coaches. So it's a development area for us. And today we have asked Rapula to talk about the fuel coaching model. Rapula, you'll tell us what has been the arrangement between you and Loazi, because we thought Loazi was going to be able to make it, but apparently she's not able to make it. So you can apologize on her behalf if she's held out. But over to you, and let's start the conversation around the fuel coaching model.
Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Ulrich, and thank you to the listeners across all parts of the world. In the afternoon today, because we all know that in South Africa, one of the highest risk of this country is sustainability of the power or the energy, specifically from our best friend Eskom. So late in the afternoon, Loazi came back to me and said, you know what, I'm experiencing a difficulty. My difficulty is I've tried to charge my phone the entire day. It's not charging. I'm not sure what is wrong. And also the issue around the laptop. So she said to me, you know what, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to go in tonight because she experienced load shedding from 6 o'clock until 10, somewhere in that space. So then I said, you know what, Loazi, I don't think it will be advisable for you to try to log in based on the current circumstances. We will try to soldier on. So some of us, this type of incident is not for the first time it happens again in the past. It's still going to happen. It's part of parcel of the risk we're dealing with, especially when it comes to digital space. So we need to learn and appreciate that one day it will be me who can go into the systems around this area, and then look impacting those circumstances where we're sitting in. So quite frankly, today we're gonna have coaching is very wide open. It's not specifically on fuel. Very often what you do, the circumstances which you faced in when you, as a coach, you get a coachee, will determine which model will be appropriate the circumstance in the environment which you're going to coach a person in, or the coachee in that space. So today we're going to learn a lot about the model called fuel model. The fuel model, whenever you think of the fuel, you can think of the petrol on its own or a diesel on its own, as long as a fuel. Even ESCOM aside is part of this, you can call it the fuel. So that fuel coaching model was around the skills development, where an individual is more, what you call it, a matured person. And then how do we take that person to operate in an extraordinary way? That's why the fuel model was more sort of a framework which was determined. And the person who determined, who actually established that fuel model, was a guy called, I'm trying to get the name right. You know, I'm in a dark sim, so every now and then I'll miss up my points in terms of how do I lay out my presentation today. So John Zenger and Kathleen Stinnett are the guys who introduced the fuel model in 2010 from their book called Extraordinary Coach: How Best Leaders Can Help Others to Grow. The fuel is an abbreviation of various acronyms, because in our space of coaching, we often use various acronyms in terms of determining how do we going to have an outcome around it. And the fuel has got sort of four determination around it, where F is the framework of the conversation. One will ask, what's the framework of conversation? We'll just explain it later on in terms of where the framework issue comes in. And the U on the fuel will say, how do we understand the current state? Immediately when I started reading that, it just triggered my mind of saying, you know, when you go into business, one of the things you do what you call it a environmental scan. And then environmental scan is to find out what's the current state of the product you want to introduce, or what is the gap which you want to explore in the market. That's where the issue of the understanding of the current state kicks in. And then once you've got the current state, how do you explore that current state to the desired state? One will think of, what is a futuristic view? How do you see the futuristic view out? And once you've got that, then you start putting together an L around that. It says, how do you lay out the success plan around it? So based on those fuel, what it stands for is more to say that how do you now overlay that process of the fuel to make sure that that model becomes effective and becomes comprehensive in terms of the outcome it based around it. So on a frame, when you frame the conversation, is more decided, you set up the context and you focus on a conversation. And it's more like you determine the purpose and the process and desired outcome of your discussions. Hence, you said, how do you frame up that conversation? One will ask, what is the meaning of the framework? The key element around the fuel model is that it is open-minded or is open-ended. It doesn't have in a space of determined outcome where you can tick, now I've reached that, I'm celebrating. Once it's become open-ended, it's more decided, where do you see the futuristic state? And what makes you, or what will drive you to go and kick out that determined state in the future? That's critical around the issue of the fuel model. The second portion around the issue of the fuel model is that if you take that, you've determined the purpose, you've determined the process, and you've designed the outcome of your discussion. Where do you kick in? You go to the next level of saying, how to understand it. But before you go to that issue of understanding, is that you still need to ask a lot of, because it's an open-ended environment, you ask a lot of questions around it. It's more to say that the coachee and the coach will sort of identify the opportunity or the behavior. That's where the coach will come in. It's more the initiating that can identify the opportunities kicks in. Once that perhaps maybe is identified that opportunity, the coachee will, on his side, on her side, will start asking himself, or what is the most important thing for me to focus on to make sure that I achieve that identified opportunity. That's where that the conversation start kicks in terms of both of you, the coachee, start writing or putting them together. What are the determining factor around that aspect? In the determination of the purpose of that outcome is that by the end of this conversation, what will you like to accomplish? That's what the coach will ask the coachee. And the coachee in this response might say, I want to accomplish the following line items. Or what I would like to ask him, help me out to how to achieve that. Is more on he or her side will start determining in terms of what is an appropriate outcome for the coachee to be achieved. Hence, this method of the fuel is more to say that it's open-ended, it's not restrictive. What we need to bear in mind around the issue of the fuel model is that it's not the final outcome for everything else. It's more to help the person to grow from the current state to the actually determined state, which will be put together at the determination of the framework of the conversation. And then we go to the next line item on the model of it, of the understanding the current state.
Just before you proceed, Rapula, so during the framing of the conversation, I hear you saying that it's almost like you also agreeing on the possible outcome or the goals, or you contract with them, and you ask them to imagine the possible outcome. Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
So there's an element of contracting inside that first level or first step.
Yeah. So when we determine the purpose and the process, there will be a contract. If there's no contracting right up front, it's not going to be a coach. It's going to be sort of a conversation like laissez-faire conversation. So once that process is in place, it must be contracted, because if it's not contracted, it's not going to take us anywhere else. It's going to just run around in cycles. But once it's constructed, we'll have a determined outcome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Got it. So the next line items of the fuel model is a U, which is more understand the current state. On understanding the current state from coachee's point of view is asking the similar question: how do you see this situation, or what is currently happening, or what is actually working well for you now?
Yeah.
Or what is actually the current challenges you are facing at this moment? And you as a coachee, how might you have contributed to the situation? Because sometimes we tend to have what we call not aware of our blind spots. So at that moment, because it's a reflectory moment, so we start identifying what are those blind spots. How might others see the situation? Now we are determining the current state.
Yeah.
Once we have determined the current state, we start determining what will be the consequences of continue with the current path or the current state. And then in that instances also, it's more to say that you start helping the individual to gain awareness of the current state and determining their own perspective. That's an advantage of the understanding your current state. And in that instances, we start asking this. Those are open-ended questions. What impact if this is having on you or on the others? That means now we start determining what's the current when we continue the current status quo.
I hear you applying questioning methodology there, which is interesting, because that's what we're going to ask Ulrike to touch on that. So I hear you bringing quite a lot of questions. So the questioning technique of the coach is fundamental here, right? You are not
Yes,
you are not telling them, you are just asking them to reflect on
exactly.
the various possibilities through as you ask them questions.
And then in that process of asking, you don't take the position as a coach. The coachee will take the position, and the coachee will start writing, yes, I believe this is right. Not you as a coach. You as a coach, no, you just ask question to open mind or to
Mm,
open up what has been closed.
mm,
It's a role of the coach.
mm, mm. And I assume that you also have a discipline to hold the space, not rushing through too many questions.
No, no. What do you do when you ask, let me say, ask David, what are the consequences if the current situation doesn't change? You allow the coachee to respond. You allow the coachee. In that response, you can ask a clarifying question so that it should not be one sentence, because one sentence, it cuts off the other aspect which might be hidden.
Mm,
So what do you do when the response kicks in? You start asking, clarify, what do you mean by this?
mm.
Why do you think this is an apparent consequences, or is a encouraging the status quo, or is encouraging this current behavior? What do you think in that space you should do to change the current behavior? What do you think will
Are you
influence?
at the same time, as you are asking these questions, forcing him or her to sit a little bit with the current state rather than wanting to move quicker from it?
No, no, no. What do you do in the current state? You is more like you write the picture as it is.
Okay.
And then the picture as it is, you start reflecting, on a picture. Here's a picture. Is this picture what do I, as a coachee, want to see myself?
Mm,
I, as a coachee, want to see others in the same, sitting in the same scenario. It's the
mm,
same as saying, how do I become an agent of change? How do I become a person who's going to push the high performance level in the space? Even if you're sitting here as a high performer, is this enough, or is this the cul-de-sac, or can this be sort of enhanced to go beyond the call of duty?
mm. There's a
So,
follow-up question here from a listener. The question goes as follows: do you use a brainstorming activity or critical thinking for the client to determine their own outcome? And how do you coach to the outcome?
ideally, you would rather use the brainstorming, because once you go to the critical thinking, is more than you're already going to the outcome.
Mm.
So,
You are going on exploratory mode.
exactly. Because your next level or next state after understanding the current state is exploratory mode, exploratory portion of it. Where you've got a current picture, now you start exploring the current picture. Is the current picture appropriate for me as an individual, for us as a team?
Mm.
It's the same goes to the scenario of saying you are a small entrepreneur. And you can see now, I leave from A to B, I'm comfortable with my business. The question arises, is this the highest level of your business performance?
Mm.
What do you need to move from here to the next level?
Explain to us what will be the difference between brainstorming and creativity and critical thinking. For those who might not understand, why will you say, no, let's not go critical mode, thinking mode, let's go on exploratory brainstorming mode?
The brainstorming mode is ideal when you start saying, on the current environment, what more is there to add in this level? It's more like you're writing a map without knowing where will this fit in.
Mm.
You put anything on a table without knowing where it's fitting. The critical thing is more to say that, let me take what I've written, and start saying, is this adding value or is not distracting value? Will this be doable or not doable? That's when the critical thinking that kicks in.
Mm.
On a brainstorming side of it, you write anything as it is on a board. On if sometimes I even say if you pay a visit to innovators, you find that everything's all over. It doesn't have a direction, and the reason why it doesn't have a direction, you person walking in, it doesn't make sense to you. But an innovator, it makes sense because whatever is written there is not going to be lost in transit. It's going to be utilized somewhere else. But it's going to be utilized when critical thinking kicks in. Let me now build what is called a flow, which will take me to the next level. If I can't build this flow, I'm lost. If I can't build this flow and start saying, if I walk from A to B, and when I walk from A to B, have I ever thought in the process, do I have humps? And if there's humps, does this humps have potholes? If there's potholes, how am I going to sort of maneuver my driving or my walking around those areas? That's when the critical path walks in and the critical thinking kicks in. But on a brainstorming, no, everything's just around you just blow on a table. You just blow on a board. Just blow anything as it stands. You don't take anything. You don't take anything outside any stance around there.
Yeah, you're just generating ideas and generating options.
Exactly.
So then critical thinking will be then the next level where you will take them to, because there you want them to be selectively looking at what works and what doesn't work, right?
Exactly. So because on the same throw of the current state, you start in where appropriate as a coach, you can offer an appropriate way. So could I share some observation I've made? You've done all these things. This is my observation. On my observation, is this what you think, or my clarification, what you think is right? On a clarification, understanding is that what you think is right. And once that you now start helping a person to think outside the box, very far away. Or you can say, have you thought, if you go on things, what are the consequences? Is now starting to think of the current state before you move to the exploratory side of it.
When these gentlemen were coming up with this fuel model, sorry, I just want to get back around a bit. What type of challenges were they faced with, and that made them to configure a model like this?
The challenges at the time were more on what we call, I used to it, at executive levels. So you find that at that level, an executive is performing, board is happy, shareholders are happy. But the key element around that is to say, you're in a comfort zone. How do we take you outside the comfort zone and with your team to the next level? So hence the fuel model was to say, let's put petrol on this so that the fire can start burning. The fire was burning, but let's put petrol so that it can maybe start escalating at a faster speed.
So they were not hitting the accelerator to the end.
You may think hitting to the end was more that you have been driving at 60 kilometers per hour. Let's now start driving at 80 kilometers per hour. It's just ideally around those environment. Let's increase the speed. That's why that model came in. And it just recently, the model is not so much. 2010, it's about 12 years old. But now it's becoming sort of one of those little models within the coaching environment, which now is starting to say, we believe at the executive level, even at the bottom level, let's just exploring this. Because don't forget one thing, coaching is more decided. One of the advantages around the issues of coaching is it becoming cost effective because it's something which is done on consistently basis. So you don't have to, at the end of the year, when you do performance, we start from scratch because you've been doing it in a coaching method. You've determined the state at the beginning of the year. Now, at the end of the year, everything is on layout. You just follow that layout and you start seeing the results at upfront. We don't wait for the results to come in. At the end of the year. So no, you are not performer, you are now a lower performer. No, it's been consistently coming in because on a consistent coaching levels, it start building up, showing the differences around it. So the next level of a fluid is exploring the current state. So when you explore the current state, either both yourself and the coach,
The desired state, you mean?
explore the desired state. So which means you now have mind mapping in front of you. You now have brainstorm everything in front of you. Is that now based on this, how do I take this to go to what I've seen at the framework of the conversation to say, this is state I want to see myself in and ourselves in the next state. Now you start understanding what is the vision of your own success.
This model was part of a book that they were writing. You call it extraordinary growth. Is that what they were looking for in these deliberations?
Hence,
that extraordinary growth was that is one of those desired states that you could say they had to explore.
Exactly. That's why I use the word of saying you are sitting in a comfort zone. You've been performing for the past 10 years, year in, year out. But somebody came to you and said, no, you're in a comfort zone. So let's move from this comfort zone to the next level. And you see the difference. Whatever is put to you in front of you on year in, year out, you outperform it. But the key element is, are you performing at your maximum level? Hence, now we come extraordinary coach kicks in or saying, let's be extraordinary one. It's more you're coaching a converted, but you're putting him to next level.
Yeah.
Yes. Hence, now that book of John and Kathleen kicks in at the same time to say, how do we help the coaches, the converted, to move to the next level of conversion? So when you go to the third level of the exploring the desired state, you now saying you identify your target and generate multiple paths to achieve the end of the state.
Who comes up with this desired state? Is the coachee being assisted to describe that desired state?
Exactly. So don't forget that when you put the framework at the beginning, there was a purpose. And now, after examining the purpose, we have mind map or brainstorm the current state. Now we move to the desired state. Is then the desired state to start bringing the end product into the picture. And the end product is built around the vision of success.
And I assume that having described the two extreme ends, there will be a lot of ground to be covered to get to that desired state.
Exactly.
And that must be costing the executive or the coachee very uncomfortable to that they've designed it, they've drafted it, and they realize that there's a hell of a lot of work to get to where we want to go, and that should make them to want to be assisted, right?
Exactly. So it's more to say that you are an expert in this field. But being an expert in this field, because you're outperforming your peers, you believe now you have reached a cul-de-sac or you have reached a high status. But when this model kicks in, start they say, no, you might be an expert in the field. You might be outperforming your peers. But let's put fuel into this picture. And the fuel in this picture now start let's expand what you're doing. So it's make sure that the gap you open there, it becomes far extended. Should not be a consistent gap. It should be a far extended gap. Then petrol kicks in. You put fuel into existing scenario. That's when the model kicks in.
And the listener here is continue to ask, how do you coach to the outcome?
In many instances, that space, Sam, is to the listeners also, is to say, based on that, when you coach today, don't forget your role as a coach is to help the coachee to achieve the outcome. You need to make sure that you don't become part and parcel of decision making, but you help the person to make decisions.
Yeah.
So in that instances, that's how you consistently and continuously make sure that whenever there's an engagement in all this in this model, you are not a decision maker. The coachee is a decision maker,
Mm.
but you help that coachee to reach those decisions.
Yeah.
That's when that aspect of the question from a listener, it's sort of facilitating the outcome thereof.
Mm. Mm.
So when we explore the desired state, is what to say that understand you as a coachee. What's your vision of your success? What do you like to see happen here? Or what will be an ideal state to look like in future? Or when we end this program, which then the key.
I can sense that you enjoy this conversation through questioning, Rapula. Does it strike the chord for you?
It create practical approach.
Mm.
Because if you don't ask questions on this model, you become I don't want to say boring in terms of delivering that aspect. But once you start creating questions around that, you start get at the back of your mind that, oh, I see, I never thought of that.
Mm.
Yeah, no, right, it makes sense.
Mm.
But if it's straightforward, saying explore the desired state, and I start explaining it, it's not going to help you to understand the model itself.
Mm.
And subsequent to that, once you understand your vision, you set goals and performance expectations.
Mm.
You as a coach, you set it up. I help you to set it up. How do I help you as a coach? What are your goals? What do you like to accomplish? Here's how you see it, how you want to see it.
Mm. Mm.
That's how you start setting up those goals and performance
I
expectations.
like what Sadie is just dropped in the chat there. That questions fuel the discussion.
Yes. That's why the model is called fuel.
Isn't it interesting that coaching sounds so simple, and yet it can be very difficult if you forget what your role is as a coach, yeah? So in this case, I hear you saying that you just ask questions and you hold the space.
Yes. Hence, when I started with this program, Sam, I said, I need to make sure personally, as a person, as part of my growth, I need to start differentiating between mentoring and coaching. Because if I'm not careful, if the contract says coaching, I need to start coaching. And when you start coaching says, ask the right question. The coachee commit himself. You don't commit yourself.
Mm.
But on mentorship, you draw a program together and walk together because you show the person how to do things.
Mm.
But coaching, no. The person, you help the person to see things.
When we are having a conversation, we are engaged in many ways.
Exactly.
One way of engaging is you hear the voices. We are talking to each other.
Yes.
I can imagine, Rapula, as you're sitting in front of your client and you are asking these questions. You're not only listening to the voice, but you are observing the body language and the emotion, and trying to locate sense the emotions. It could be very powerful, or it could be paralyzing.
So ideally in coaching, that state is very important, especially the listening part, active listening part of it, and subsequent to the movement of the person. Hence, now we now in a different a world of technology, where perhaps you can do coaching through Teams, Zoom, but your challenge is one: you don't feel the atmosphere of the person sitting next to you. But the message could come out identical as long as there is a focus in the both two sides, two players. So the issue of coaching is important.
So, what will be the technique that the coach will use to explore, to help the client explore that desired state? Because explore sounds it's a very big weight. How do we go about that?
One of the techniques around it is to say to a coachee, don't forget when we start the desired state, we identify the target. And once you've identified the target, you start generating multiple paths to achieve the end state. You don't design a single path, because if you design a single path and you reach a hump on a road, you go back to the drawing boards. But if you've got multiple paths and you reach a hump, you just take the alternative road, you go to then you give the end result at the same time. So one of the techniques of saying that once you start doing those multiple paths, once you start helping the coachee to draw those multiple paths, you make sure that the focus remains. Because what you do, if we had the coaching lessons today for an hour, when you start the next lesson, you do what you call it a recap of what we did last time, so that you don't lose the focus. Because if you don't do the recap, you're going to lose the focus.
Coach Rapula.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it possible for me as a client or a coachee to have more than one desired state for a particular issue?
You can, depending. Let's say you are a CEO of a company with 3 or 4 multiple focus environment or areas. Your desired state of all of them might not be the same. So you can have multiple
Could
focus.
that be a problem?
I don't see it as foresee it as a problem, but you have to increase your engagement within your coach and coachees to make sure you don't lose focus.
So I could be assisted in terms of prioritizing. Yes, you could have many desired outcomes, but what is important for you now?
Key element around that is what is the priority on those.
Will that a word explore being suggesting that you are also not just going to converge into definitive state? You're going to allow me to diverge a little bit, and through your wonderful technique of questioning, make me to ultimately know what do I go for now for this particular moment.
Yes.
Will the exploring being that? Because I'm trying to find out, what if the client is going all over and is healthy for him for now, because perhaps there's still enough time? Or what if I'm going all over forever? So what do you do as a coach when you see me getting even more lost in this situation?
That's when you as a coach, you make sure that you revert back what is the purpose. And the purpose will define, is this path achieving the purpose at the framework side? If at the time when the coachee is because as a coach you get excited, and in your excitement you forget what you have laid down as a purpose of putting the fuel, then you're gonna go all over. But once you keep on reminding the coachee the purpose of this petrol, I don't think it's going to be easy for the coachee to go all over.
What do I take out? What is the value of me having to do step 2, where you said, let's understand the current state?
The value of step 2, that's why I use the word of saying, I won't say brainstorming, mind mapping. That's the value of step 2. Step 2 does not put you in a path, but it says to label everything there.
Okay.
Once everything has been labeled, then we go to step 3. On that labeling, how do you build a path to reach all which we have set at the framework?
Okay. All right.
Yes. So on step 3, you start putting what you call paths and of actions. You can have different paths. You can ask, this might work, this might not work.
Okay.
Yes.
So if the client is struggling to come up with 2, 3 more options, and he just comes with one option upfront, what does that suggest, and what will you do? Or is it helpful to always go and look for more options, even though the client has already decided that I think this is the option?
You as a coach, you can offer alternate, different couple of thoughts, so as to avoid. Once you got one thought, what you do now, you are now putting barriers of which might be other thoughts came in the picture. So you as a coach, you are allowed to offer different thoughts. And on different thoughts, you actually, I wouldn't say force, but you can force the coachee to start thinking differently.
It sounds like you are saying there's no hurry in coaching.
No, there's no hurry in coaching. Because if you hurry in coaching, you may not achieve what is being said at the framework side of it. Because once you go in a hurry, the key element around it is you want a quick win, and the quick wins are not for the coaching. Quick wins as for mentoring. No, I'm losing money. How do I close this gap? Those are the quick wins. But coaching, no. Because once you master that process of that coaching, nobody's going to stop you. That's the impact of around the issues of coaching. On the same thing, when you start exploring that desired state, you start thinking of what are the possible barriers, what are the possible resistance. Do you know when people are in a comfort zone, and you start saying from tomorrow we're not entering at the front door, entering at the back door, there will be resistance.
Yeah.
How do you manage it? Or the question is that the major barrier? Or is it a small barrier? Or is it the biggest resistance? You start asking the coachee how he's going to make sure that everybody follows that, or he himself or she herself. How are you going to do that? Because now you're moving from a comfort zone to uncomfortable environment.
I guess it's an art to hold the space and almost put these things in suspense, because naturally we live to resolve problems, isn't it?
Yes. Now coaching,
that's more mentoring mode where you
exactly. Now coaching does not allow you as a coach to resolve problems. Coaching allows you as a coach to allow the coachee to resolve the problem. Coachee,
that's why I'm saying that for you as a coach, that must be an art, because the temptation will be there for you to want to point to the outcome. But you are saying step 3 says explore.
Exactly.
So I purposefully wanted us to go deeper, to explore that word explore.
Yes.
There's intention there, isn't it?
There is an intention there that if you don't explore to the maximum exploration of this desired state, possibilities of getting an outcome which you've put as a purpose right up front at framework level becomes a little bit hindered in the process. So you need to make sure that when you start exploring, you look at the sometimes it in a field of business, it's strengths and weaknesses. That's a desired state.
What does this do to a company that defines high performance in the terms of speed of delivery?
So do you know what this does that in that environment? That's why it was designed at a time when they call it extraordinary coaching.
So there was no crisis of delivery.
No, there was no crisis of delivery. The delivery was there. The key element around the issue of at the time was to say, how do we make sure that we become sustainable and maintain that level to the maximum without hindering, without even lowering the current offering? Was more to let's go to the highest level of offering in the space.
It's like a performance coach who says, you have achieved the 80%, but I know I can take you to 90.
Or I can even push to 120.
Yeah, in business they call it stretch targets.
Exactly.
So it can become a culture actually of sustaining high level performance, isn't it? If you coach executives to develop that capacity and tenacity, staying power of consistently stretching themselves, right?
Exactly. It's more, in my opinion, without going details, what the authors of this model were doing at the time was to say, my perception is not reality. I found that when this model was designed, the company was a monopolistic company at the time. It was monopolizing every business you can ever think of. Question kicks in: how do you sustain yourself?
Mm.
So that's why the petrol modeling kicks in. I call it the petrol modeling. Some people say the fuel modeling. Yes, the fuel modeling, but where I'm sitting, I call it the petrol modeling.
Mm. Mm. You ignite more fire.
Yes, you ignite more fire to make sure that the business or the individuals who are in this business are excelling, even if they are excelling, but they excel more than excel.
So you are saying that this model, it was designed for a good performing organization, and the purpose of it was to give people to the extra high level.
Exactly. To say it was
So it
designed
was not for a problem of non-delivery. It was more of sustaining high performance.
at the time of invention of this model, yes. But when you start exploring it, you can do it also in non-performing environment.
Okay. All right. I'm mindful of time. Ulrike, if you can give us 5 to 10 minutes, let's say minimum 5 minutes, and then we can slowly start wrapping up because it's we can talk for the whole evening, but it's beautifully presented. The last L,
The
the
last,
last letter.
the last L addresses the issue of saying, now you have framed the conversation, you have understand the current state, you have explored the current state. How do you lay out the success plan? Create a detailed, actionable plan, follow through that will lead to goal attainment. That's why they call it layouts as else.
Oh, so this now answers that question that was asked by Dolores to say, how do you coach to the outcomes? That last step.
That's the last L addresses coaching of the last the outcome, coaching of the last game. So in this level or in this state, what you do, you develop the coachee develop and agree on action plan and timeline.
Mm,
What specific action will help a coachee to achieve the goal?
mm,
What will be the first step? When will you start? Who can help you hold you accountable? And how do you stay focused? We're asking about focus on your goals and plans. And once you
mm.
do that, because you are now developing and agreeing on action plan and timelines, you start enlisting what you call support of others.
Mm,
Who will support you in moving forward?
mm.
How can I, as your coach, support you in moving forward?
Already by engaging them like that, they probably feel like, oh, I have a partner here who's
Exactly.
interested in what I'm going to do about the situation.
But you, as a coach, once you do that, in terms of how do I support you, guard against being a mentor, remain as a coach.
Yes.
So it's an art. You remain as a coach.
Maybe the support I need is for you to keep on challenging me.
Exactly. So that let's say you come in with an outcome which was we placed right at the beginning. That's not challenging. Do you think this outcome is sufficient? Do you think this outcome, can we do more on this outcome? If the outcome was to say we will achieve a saving of 1,000 rand, then it's not articulate the list of those saving of 1,000 rand. I said, do you think, is that real saving? Or do you think you could have done more? So what I do, I'm sort of expanding your mindset, expanding your horizon. But I don't physically get involved. You physically get involved. And then in so doing, once you got that, you set what you call setting up milestone and follow-up in accountability. What do you do in that instance? Forget that the plans are not statics. They keep on changing, but you don't forget the goal.
Yeah.
And then the key element around that, once that accountability and starting said, we agree on me as a coach and you as a coachee. How do we touch one another? What type of engagement do we do? And what do we look for in our engagement? We don't engage because we engage in terms of getting an outcome.
Just mention the name of that book again that they were writing when they came up with the model.
The name of the book is The Extraordinary Coach: How Best Leaders Help Others Grow.
Extraordinary Growth.
Grow. How Extraordinary Coach.
Okay.
The Extraordinary Coach: How the Best Leaders Help Others Grow.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you. Let's. I'm not switching you off. You're gonna have the opportunity at the end of the conversation with Ulrike to reflect on this conversation. But any remarks to transition to Ulrike that you want to make on summing up the model?
On summing up the model, in the transition in this model, is to say to the listeners and to Ricky, because Ricky's going to talk to us about listening, is to say coaching on its own, or the framework on its own, is not a cage. I'm not locking in a cage. It's more an open-minded approach. That's why it's got open-minded questions. It still remains a model, but it's not a cage, which says a linear fashion where you have to follow every step. No, you utilize it as one of key and parts element where the process enhances or create a sense. And you've got moments where you talk to different colleagues, talk to different people around that type of model.
And then I assume that there's no lineup of questions that you're going to ask in sequence. I mean, that this probably requires you to be actively present, listening, so that the questions that follow, they are taking into account the answers that the client has given you. Otherwise, it will become...
Hence, now you need to be properly listening at all the angles, so that inappropriately you don't create questions in your own listening. You create questions. The coachee speaks. Because if you have what you call predetermined questions, you're not going to achieve the full modeling. You're going to achieve something else.
So it's an engagement type of a model, this one.
Exactly. And the reason why at the time the two authors recommend the model was more to around the issue of individuals requiring a growth. How I, as a high performer person, to grow beyond this performance?
Yeah.
Because the person's got interest, you've got interest. There will be sort of convergence of ideas. There will be a lot of questions around it. But the listening, active listening, is critical. Don't miss anything else around it, and don't be allow yourself, both of yourself, to have sit in an environment where you'll be easily distracted.
Wow. Thank you so much, Rapula.
You're welcome.
Ulrike, I hope you are inspired as I am.
I am indeed. Thank you. And thank you.
Yeah, no, Rapula has researched this model so well. I see you, Rapula, I only see fuel.
It's petrol. That's it.
Great insights, says Coach Toleras. Indeed, it's that's beautiful, beautiful. I've learned a lot. We'll come back, reflect at the end of the session. Ulrike, I think your topic just dovetail into this conversation so well, because I was saying that you can't have a lineup of questions that you are just going to be throwing at the client. You ought to be actively listening, and that happens to become your topic. Why is active listening so important in coaching?
Because it is the heart of coaching. I think it's even the heart of conversations and, in fact, the heart of relationships.
Wow.
If you have not learned to listen properly, you live in two different worlds.
But I thought everybody naturally is born with the ability to listen. We all have ears.
No, exactly. We all have ears to hear, and that is almost like something that we cannot choose. If a noise comes to us, we hear it. But listening has to do with your will. Do I want to listen? I use my ears, my heart, and my mind to listen.
So listening is not equal to hearing.
Not at all.
Tell us.
And okay, I have a question before I start, Sam. Can you be my conversation partner, that if I want to ask a question, I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good. Then let me start.
They say you are not audible, Ulrike.
I'm not audible.
Yeah.
I am okay, I can do one more thing. I can put my iPods in, and let's see whether that works better. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better?
It should be better. Let me ask the colleagues to give us feedback as to whether they can hear you better. But in general, your voice is very low. Okay. It definitely has to do with your equipment.
Okay, so maybe...
For next time, hopefully we can resolve it.
So the first time you spoke to me, you said I was loud.
Yeah, now you're coming better. You probably just have to shout over your voice, unfortunately.
Okay, so I turn the phone around that I'm directly on my microphone.
You're perfect now. You're perfect now.
Enough?
Yeah, maybe the microphone was the speaker. What is it? Is it microphone? Was looking away from you.
So I'm using my iPods.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So what I would like to speak about, I start with active listening, but actually active listening is part of conversations. Just yesterday, I actually did a team coaching session on active listening. And the first question that I asked them is a question about talking. How come do some people talk a lot and others stay quiet? And they were very surprised to learn that is not an action of whether you are an extrovert or whether you are an introvert. Because many people say the way you show up in the world is because you're born that way. You like to talk or you don't like to talk. That is not at all the case. But we don't go into that in more detail now. All I want to say is that a good conversation is always an act of connection. So it's a give and take. And I'm asking you now, Sam, how do you know you've had a good conversation?
How do I know if I've had a good conversation? It is when all the things I wanted addressed, they've been addressed to my full satisfaction.
Okay. So it has to do with satisfaction. And it has
Yes.
to do with actually how it makes you feel.
Yes.
You walk away from a great conversation sort of elated and energized and inspired. And if you walk away from a bad conversation, how does that make you feel?
Your system will tell you that this was not a good conversation. You're not satisfied.
Yeah. Right. So one can almost see, we have a real impact on each other, we human beings. We have a biological impact on each other, and you can feel that if you are in the presence of somebody that's in a bad mood or in a good mood. It's almost, we can almost use the picture of a virus. So if you have a bad conversation, it is almost like contracting a bad virus. It leaves you sort of deflated.
Yes.
If you had a fantastic conversation, it's almost like an immune booster. It actually affects even your hormones, anything in you, in a positive way. So there is really a physical effect of a good conversation. And why do I say that? Because active listening is almost the bigger part of a very good conversation. So another thing that I want to ask you is, the conversation as such is the business of making connections. So it's a give and take. Do you know what conversational intelligence is?
Conversational intelligence.
Yeah.
It sounds like being intentional about what you want to get out of conversations and go for that.
So conversational intelligence is really to have a forwards and backwards between two people that is a win-win situation for both. You are as active in listening as you are active in speaking. And emotion and it is when you start co-creating something new. So it's not just bringing your points across. And in coaching, we try to do that all the time, to bring something new, to co-create new inspiring thoughts and solutions. Okay,
Yeah.
but enough of that.
Just don't be quick to run away from it, to move away from it. So are you saying that conversational intelligence is almost like the ability to be aware when you are only just saving your interest and then create space so that the other person's interest is also served?
Yes, but it's almost like you use higher level intelligences when you have conversational intelligence. It's not just, getting emotion across or getting content across. It's when you have elements of trust and integrity, empathy, good judgment, all of these words included in your conversation. That's how you grow conversational intelligence. So for instance, you can bring all your points across, but if you do not trust the other person, was the conversation then great? So I expand it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I would like to ask, of course, I can't now ask the audience, but Google did a project. They called it Project Aristotle, Aristotle in German. And they wanted to find out, what does a team need to be the best performing and most effective kind of team? So now people come up, when I ask that question, people come up with all kinds of ideas. What would you guess? What is the biggest qualifier for a high performance team?
The biggest qualifier for high performance team.
Yeah. I'm challenging you, I know, and it's to get the answer.
Yeah, no, let me try, because this is interesting. I'm making myself student now because you've given me the opportunity to really to reflect. Wouldn't that be? There need to be synergy for a team to become a high performance.
Yes. But there's one thing the team has to do to get that synergy.
Two things together.
Nope. and it's very difficult. Most people don't get it, and I must admit I would have also not gotten it. It is when the team members speak roughly the same proportion as another. So if everybody gets the same talking time,
Uh-huh.
they have a term for that. It's called the equality in distribution of conversational turn-taking. The
Wow.
equality in distribution of conversational turn-taking. So that's why it's very important if we are, for instance, in a team, to really invite everybody to bring their voice into the room and not just thinking, oh, this one is talking a lot all the time, so let him just talk, or let her just talk, and this one is quiet, and we leave the person in their comfort zones. That is not what will make us great conversationalists. So that is what I just want to send up front. So again, it's talking and it's listening. And of course, we also know that we have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, but often we forget it. And if you look at the word listen, do you know that it has exactly the same letters as the word silent? So if you reorganize the word listen, you get silent. And often it's easier to talk, and it's much more difficult to listen. And it is it's the same letters. And there is one thing maybe that I also just want to ask you up front. The one reason why we do not listen well is because we are notorious mind wanderers. There is a Harvard study. Do you know what the amount of mind wandering is in terms of percentage? You know, like even the people that are listening to the call, there will be very few people that are 100% concentrating just on what we talk. It's very difficult. So what do you think is the average amount of time we mind wander? Even if we are in a course like that where we are actually sort of interested. Any idea? Percentage of mind wandering. Are you still there, Sam? So I cannot hear you, Sam. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Ulrike.
Okay. All right. Were you thinking? Okay.
No. I was not thinking. I took a guidance from you. You say, Sam, I'll do a conversation, and then you'll be sort of my conversation partner.
Yeah. Okay. But did you hear my question?
I hear your question of saying, even right now, probabilities are very strong that you're not 100% listening.
Yeah, that's what I said. But I was asked, the average amount that people do mind wander in a conversation is 47%, according to a Harvard study. Now, we as coaches are actually asked to be 100% present. But naturally, that's not natural for us. And the interesting thing is also that, for instance, when we go to school, what we learn the most, or what is taught the most, but used the least, is writing. And listening, we learn first, but it is taught the least. So in schools, nobody ever teaches you how to listen. They would just say, listen or else. But what it really means, or that we train it, that doesn't really happen. And I think it would be a great idea to do listening seminars. So listening means to really give your undivided attention to the speaker and, to absorb information, to extract the meaning, the feelings of the people, to really understand not what he said, the words, but really to get the whole person, the feelings and other cues maybe that you get from body language or from the tone of voice or from the posture. So when I demonstrate that I listen actively, I give this undivided attention, I do not multitask. I experience it a lot when I'm on the phone with somebody, then I can see the person, or I can feel the other person on the other side is doing something else because there is a delayed response.
Ulrike, does not that comes with practice?
I would say I would say active listening is actually not so much a function of practice. It's first and foremost a function of your mindset and your will. Do I want to learn this? Do I really stay in that listening mode? Because it is naturally so much easier to be distracted and to do mind wandering, specifically when it's not as interesting.
Okay. All right. No, I'm with you.
Or most probably also if somebody, for instance, doesn't, some people are very slow and you lose them, or some people are very fast and you lose them. There has to be a lot of rapport for the conversation flowing easily and naturally.
Yes.
From a coach point of view.
Yes.
Okay, so it's important to not be distracted, to not mind wander, to stay present, and really start understanding the body language as well that a person basically presents.
Ulrike, I'm reading a message from the comments here who says we are not hearing you.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, Ulrike, we haven't been hearing you at all. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear, and my mouth is on my telephone. Should I log off again and come back?
No, we can hear you now, but there was a time where you were totally gone. And probably you were talking, but we were not hearing you.
Okay. So how do we do this now? Must I repeat something?
Yeah, but I actually I couldn't hear you from the moment when we were speaking about. There was a last point I raised. I can't remember what it was, but I wanted you then to go into other topics like effective listening in the workplace, questioning technique. But you were explaining what will make a performance team to perform, and we'll talk about synergy, and then you talked about equality in distribution in conversational talking.
Yes.
That's where we left it.
Okay. Okay. So when
You can take it from there.
Yeah, all right. So I was now just saying how we demonstrate that we listen actively. I'm still at listening actively, not effectively. Is that still okay?
Okay. Yeah, no, that's perfect. You can continue.
Okay, good. So I try to speak as loudly as I can, but I cannot change I checked my equipment, so everything is set on what it should be.
Now you are loud and clear now. It's much better now.
Okay, good. So basically, you demonstrate that you are listening well as if you do not interrupt, if you maintain eye contact, if you ask questions for clarification, if you can paraphrase, if you can ask the permission question, when you can concentrate and you pay attention, if you don't use somebody else's story to just latch on and give your own story, that happens very often, that somebody speaks and it just gives you an idea to, if I say, oh, I had a flu yesterday, and you tell me your grandmother also had one, and so you take over the conversation. Listen to what is said, but also to what is not said. We as coaches are trained to look at what is not said. That is also part of active listening, and of course to show empathy. You are successful in your listening when the other person gives you a signal that they really feel heard and understood. Basically, you connect. You also know that you are successful when you are able to interrupt yourself, to interrupt your own thoughts and your own needs. In a way, you almost create a conversational comfort zone for the other person. And then, of course, you have to wait and not jump in. Sometimes these moments of silence are really, really necessary. And how do I know that I am not active listening or that the conversation has not been good? That is when I feel that we talk past each other. When you feel the person didn't understand me, or if the person brings something up that was not at all what you have said, latches on to something that you didn't mean. So sometimes we have to clarify terms, but if we listen actively, we at least have the intention to make this conversation that we have right now the most important thing on this planet. Okay, that is all I would like to say about active listening. Any questions from your side, Sam?
I'm fascinated by this the point you raise, and it's not the first time I hear of it, that we must also listen to what is not being said. That's an art.
By training, I'm a meta coach, and we are basically trained to listen, for instance, to emotions, to thinking patterns, to the belief structure. Where are their frames? Where are their models? In what kind of a matrix do they actually sit? So it's almost like from a meta point to look at what do they believe, what do they value, what is their permission structure, their intention, they're deciding how do they make decisions and so on. So it is far beyond just listening to the content and the emotions of the words. But that takes a bit of skill, I must.
So there should be some silent stimuli somehow that you must access. Or is it engaging all the senses to be able to hear what they are not saying?
It's engaging all the senses, but if you understand how a person is wired or how their matrix works, you will be able to understand what they don't say. Because why are people stuck? Because we have biases or we have cognitive distortions. We do not see things. If you just wait to what the client says, they have blind spots, or they are blind to their own blind spots, of course. So, if you ask me, Ulrike, what's your blind spot? It's very difficult for me to tell you what my blind spot is, because then it's not a blind spot. And coaching, of course, always means to bring something that's unconscious into the consciousness, basically.
It can be difficult to sit with silence, right?
Yes. It can be difficult, but it can also be nourishing.
Do you decode the silence, or you just proceed from wherever you come back to talking?
So there I use my gut feeling of, for me it is in coaching or I feel there is a flow element. So of course, you can pick the moments incorrectly, but in a way, with experience, when silence is needed and when not. So for instance, if you ask a difficult question and the other person doesn't answer straight away, don't just shoot up another question. Wait. And if the answer doesn't come, then rephrase the question, because normally if a person doesn't answer, you have hit something. Makes sense?
Good sense. And it's wonderful that we are coaches and we are talking about this, because this sounds like this is resources we need in a real coaching situation, because this does happen.
Exactly. It happens. There is, by the way, I can maybe just say that before I carry on, there is a very good book. It's not written for coaches. It's called You Are Not Listening by Kate Murphy. You Are Not Listening by Kate Murphy, that I have read recently. It's a whole book, and it really explains also how we are as a culture. It's not just we as coaches learning active listening and telling other people to do it. It has cultural dimensions if we do not listen, because it basically makes us more separate and more disconnected. So it's much more than just a function of being a good coach or being a good manager. It's a function of having healthy relationships.
You mentioned three powerful tools or techniques for active listening, which we all been taught at the coaching schools, but sometimes we forget to apply them. The paraphrasing, summarizing, and I think there was another one, permission questions you mentioned.
Yes.
Those are powerful techniques in coaching.
Yes.
Would you want to expatiate a little bit on that?
Okay, so paraphrasing just means if something comes to you that you give it back to the client using his or her words, or summarizing it, and just find out whether that's what they meant. So that means that you are on the same page. Sometimes you might not have understood something. For instance, in the conversation we had just now, when you were speaking about state. So state, for instance, for me might be something very different than what state means to you. So, are we speaking about the outcome, or is it an emotional state? What is state? And sometimes it's just very good to really make clear that we are having the same idea of the same word. Specifically in South Africa, we come from different backgrounds. English is, for many of us, also for me, not my first language. So it's even more important to make sure that we are on the same page. And permission question, the permission question I'm asking quite a lot. It is, can you give yourself permission to have that thought? Can you give yourself permission to imagine this or that? Because sometimes there is an inner, what can I say? Many of us have an inner mother or an inner father that try to tell us what we can do and what we cannot do. So then we are restricted in our answering. If I ask the permission question, it almost, here is a person free and has permission to really say what they want to say.
Yeah. Allow yourself space to interrogate yourself, something like that.
Not only that, even to feel something. Can you give yourself permission to, for instance, can you give yourself permission to feel angry? Because anger is not something we should sort of feel. So therefore, we have to first, if you have something in your personality, or in your life, like the dragon that you want to slay, you first have to identify what the dragon is. You almost have to make friends with the dragon before you can battle the dragon. Many of us have many, many problems, and we are not allowing ourselves to name it. And without naming it and allowing it, we cannot work with it. We cannot combat it, if that makes sense.
Talk to me about mistakes that perhaps we do as coaches, and forgetting that we are not superior to our clients. So this same experience we are putting clients through, we could be putting ourselves through them, yet we think we are putting them. We should allow ourselves to be put through them. We should allow ourselves to feel the same way that the clients feel when they are sitting in front of us.
So do you now speak about a conversation? So we are in a coaching session. Is that where you come from?
Yes. I'm saying that we should feel okay to feel the same emotions that our clients are feeling as a result of our conversation.
Sure.
We shouldn't be seeing ourselves as superior or what. Isn't that a blockage, a possibility of a blockage to be in active listening?
I don't think that if you take on the same state as your coachee, specifically if it is, let's say he gets frazzled, or the coachee gets frazzled and starts being jittery, then of course it's absolutely not helpful if we
of course. But recognizing that.
Yes, we have empathy.
Okay.
We can still say, I sense that you feel this. Am I correct? You check in with the person. You don't just make assumptions about the feelings of the person. You check in with the person. Is this what's going on with you right now? I see that you are rolling your eyes, or I see that you cross your arms. So you notice something and you check in and you wait for the coachee to volunteer to you what's going on with them. But mirroring doesn't in that way not mean that you take on that state. Of course.
Wait, I was looking for. Thank you very much. I'm looking for that way.
But one thing I can just say. So let's say your coachee is celebrating something that is of high value, an achievement, and that person is really happy. Then please take on the happiness emotion. Then it's encouraging.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. I love this technology. They are just English words, but if I explain proper, they will be very helpful for us. So we spoke about paraphrasing, permission questions, summarizing, and mirroring. I think that's it. Yeah, good. Wow, I'm sure we'll call you back on this one. So yeah, you feel free to continue, Ulrike.
Okay, so that was the part on active listening. And now my next topic would be effective listening. So what is the difference between effective listening and active listening? So effective listening means that you are in a conversation and it's about retaining information. So not getting the information, but, memorizing the information in a particular situation or in a process or with a customer. It's often used in a customer-centric environment. For instance, in the service industry, in our course, we had the example of a pizza place or of a restaurant. It is basically finding if somebody gives you an order, that you give back what the order was to make sure that you heard correctly. Or there's basically, again, a word called DRAP, D-R-A-P, and it's an acronym for D for deflecting, R for reflecting, A for advising, and P for probing. So what that means is if you, for instance, deflecting means if somebody, let's say, complains about your service, then you should solve the problem and offer the person perhaps something that is of high value, let's say a free meal or free drink or whatever else, but then stop talking about the problem and start the conversation or change the conversation to something positive so that the customer doesn't stay with a negative feeling and gets an opportunity to forever complain about the one wrong thing. That's deflecting. So, of course, deflecting normally, I use the word deflecting, for instance, a lot when I work with narcissists. It's a manipulation technique in that way. They don't want to have the conversation that we should have.
Yeah.
But when it comes to services, this is meant specifically for service orientation. So reflecting just means that you show your clients or your customers that you can really listen. And you often do that by feeding back what they said, or you say, have I heard you correctly? Or let me just repeat your order, and you reflect it back. It's like kind of a summary, and then they know, yes, you got my order correctly. The A in DRAP for for the A in DRAP means advising. So people in their businesses, specifically when you are client or customer focused, should be able to give advice. We often people can be in next door. Let's say you are in a supermarket and you ask people about where can you find a particular product. It happens often enough that they A, don't know where it is, and B, they don't even know what the product is. So in a way, you should know your environment where you work, and you should be able to ask questions, maybe even the ones that are not that directly linked to you. So be aware, what are the kinds of things that people might ask if they come to me? Probing the P in DRAP means the ability to get more information. So asking smart questions or considerate questions. So not just taking the order, the steak, you say, all right, how must the steak be? I mean, everybody does that automatically. But it's even further. If you order a salad, you can ask, do you want the dressing at the side? So it's basically asking questions to make the customer experience even better.
I like this model because if all of us have got experience of being in restaurants, and actually one has seen this model being applied, but I didn't know that there was a model they were following. Because they always say, but I've given you the order. Why do you have to read back the order to me?
Yeah, it's right. And I can tell you, in 5-star gourmet restaurants, they are trained that they don't do that necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's true. They pride themselves by remembering. You know, some people come to your table and they don't bring anything to write on. They are just very good in memorizing even a full table of people's orders.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
Okay. That
Great.
is effective listening. The next topic would be, what are the barriers? Is that interesting? The barriers to effective
Yeah, that will be wonderful. That will be interesting.
So the question that we ask is, if listening is so useful and if it is the golden key to relationships, why don't we do it? Why is it so hard? What do you think, Sam? Why is it so hard?
I think we are selfish. We only want to be heard and listened to.
Okay. Selfishness. Okay. That's most probably the best answer.
Mm.
Yes. Often we are selfish. Sometimes we are overwhelmed. Specifically, I mean, many people that are at work, there are lots of demands. Now you come home, more demands, more people want to tell you something, want to listen. Sometimes we are very drained and we don't have enough emotional space and we feel stressed, and then we don't have a clear mind because there's just enough, or there's too much noise in our lives. We have what we call like an attention war. There is a war out there for our attention. Everything wants our attention. And at least if we talk, it feels to us like, oh, now I can say something. A barrier is also, of course, if I interrupt. That is a barrier. And I know that sometimes, for instance, if I start a coaching session, I sometimes say, I asked the permission question. Would you allow me to interrupt if I feel that we go on a tangent? For instance, if people want to give you detail that doesn't have anything to do with their outcome, they just want to tell their story. And some people do that a lot. And you have to, of course, decide for yourself, is this helpful for this person now, or is it not? So interrupting. Then, of course, the problem is also when you fabricate your reply while you're listening, because that means that you're not listening because you are thinking about your answer. Then some people have a barrier because they think they don't have a problem with listening.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want to improve because they are actually not aware that they are not listening. Because they say, but I have listened. It is intellectually, it's really a task. It's you have to train your hearing muscles to really be able to focus 100%. Then you have to recognize your own biases. So sometimes we only seem to be listening to things that we can relate to with, in our own personal frame, where we can find reference points. So we often latch onto something that's familiar to us, and then we make connection, we wire. So it's difficult to really hear the whole thing. Sometimes we then also stop listening because we judge something or we make assumptions. Also big barriers to listening. And of course, prejudices. I can have somebody in front of me and I think, I have already some kind of ideas what this person can or can't do. Then another barrier is there are honestly people that are addicted to be right. That are the know-it-all people, They know it all. They are addicted to be right. So you can't tell me anything. So I definitely do not have to listen to you. Specifically, if
that's certainly one of the big mistakes we make, one of the areas of development. And the thinking why we should continue having these conversations come from that understanding that actually we must get used to learning new things, because there's this rush to conclusion that we know is very dangerous to one's own development.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Ulrike, I'm mindful of time. The platform will switch us off. I don't want to steal the opportunity for you to come and do a nice closing. I think we haven't covered everything, but I'm just mindful that I will hate situation where it drops off before you haven't actually made your concluding remarks. And I also want people to connect with you on the social media platform. We can always come back and revisit these points, but I really want you to sum up for us and also tell people how they get hold of you, and also give Rapula a few minutes to reflect as well.
Okay. So what we did not get to, we are almost done with the barriers. There are just two more. The one is that we want to impress people. And often we think it's much more impressive if we talk than listening. What I want to say, so I covered now just the listening. We didn't get really into detail into the questioning techniques, but you know what? I think it's a very, very good idea to maybe stop here, because I want to encourage everybody that also observe how it feels when you are deeply listened to, how inspired you feel when somebody listens to you, and let's listening almost become a contagious thing amongst us. And maybe my last thing is that to be listened to is one of the rarest gifts that we give to people. And that is something that we can learn, not just as coaches, but wherever we are in this world. And I have one other acronym. It's called WAIT, like waiting.
Yeah.
That stands for, why am I talking? So it is to interrupt yourself and ask yourself, why am I talking now?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Wait.
So wow.
I want to leave you with, once you understand that listening gives you these deeper, really fulfilling relationships, and that listening and great conversations are immune boosters, I think we can live in a world where we have far less conflict, far less tension, and where we will start understanding each other much, much better. And with that, I say thank you. People can get hold of me with my email, Ulrike. I know it's difficult to spell, but you see that there, ulrike@pretorius.net. Ulrike@pretorius.net. My website is also very easy, pretorius.net. I'm also on LinkedIn, the other social media platforms, so it's quite easy to get hold of me. My other company, Learning Edge Partners, also has a presence on the internet.
And you are on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also, by the way, for people that are interested in the Enneagram, I'm also an Enneagram consultant and a Berkman consultant. So there are quite a number of things that I'm passionate about.
We're going to call you back. Thank you so much, Ulrike. That was beautiful.
And thanks for being able, thanks for being there for me to challenge you. Thank you for that. And thanks for Puna as well. And the listeners, of course.
1 minute, Rapula, for you.
It was very great. There's something which I wanted to ask Ulrike before she dished off, is that she mentioned something of when you are listening, you must look at the person's eye to eye. Will that not have an impact in the cultural differences?
Yes.
Because in certain cultures, as a young person, if you look at an elderly in his eyes, it's more like you are disrespecting that person.
Yes, absolutely. With most of the things, you have to take the culture into consideration. The way you sit, the way you dress, the way you hold eye contact, but you get the cues from the person you speak to. If somebody avoids your eye contact, don't stare at that person, because you always have to make sure that the person feels comfortable. And then the aspect of mirroring comes in, not that you should look away all the time. There is a kind of embracing the other person in your presence.
Wonderful. Tosi says she would like to work with you. So you are in the same, we created a WhatsApp group now. You can get each other's contact on that WhatsApp group. There's quite many other coaches that are still going to come. I hope you'll be here next time when we have the session with Sash Paruk. She will be talking about Achieve Coaching Model on the 27th of September. We still have Coach George, who's also here today. So the WhatsApp group is there for us to connect and grow ourselves. Thank you so much, Ulrike. Thank you so much, Rapula. You were the star, so we really enjoyed the conversation. Let's see you on the 27th at COMETSA Radio Podcast. The podcast will be available. You can download it and share it further. Thank you so much, and you take care.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.